You're going to want to hear this. While the media distracts you with US troop movements, China just handed Iran the exact weapon to make a blockade of Hormuz permanent. Your world's about to take a hit, so if you think this only affects oil prices, you're missing the devastating $40 billion liquidity crisis already swarming equity markets. The mainstream consensus is dead wrong. They're pricing in a contained regional conflict. This is ridiculous. And this is the part you really need to understand. This will not stay regional. If things get serious, it instantly goes global. Other superpowers are on a high alert. Russia and China are calculating their next moves. They're waiting to see exactly how far the US Navy will stretch its resources. A fire in Hormuz pulls every major player into the theater. Also, the mainstream media is completely ignoring the plumbing of the global financial system. Today, we strip away the geopolitical noise, we look purely at the mechanics of capital flows, US Treasuries, and global liquidity. Now, pay attention to this. Let's start with the choke point. As we speak, the US military is massing in the region. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is in the Arabian Sea with 9 destroyers. Just today, the USS Gerald F. Ford, the largest carrier in the world, also docked in Crete to join the buildup. The Pentagon is actively boarding ships in the Indian Ocean. They're targeting what is known as Iran's shadow fleet. Wait, before we go any further, if you value unbiased data and macro analysis that cuts through the mainstream noise, do me a quick favor, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon. Most people will miss this crisis until it's too late. Don't be one of them. Join the channel now so you never miss an update on your money. What is the shadow fleet? Bear with me, this gets interesting. This is the clandestine network of hundreds of oil tankers. They use shell companies, spoof tracking system, and flag hopping to evade sanctions. They transfer crude in the dead of night, ship to ship, to mask its origin. Their biggest client is Beijing. Kpler data confirms this. China purchased an average of 1.38 million barrels per day of this discounted Iranian crude oil last year. The US is trying to choke off Iran's revenue by hunting these gold ships, but wait until you see how Beijing is countering. According to Reuters, Iran is close to securing the SM-302 supersonic cruise missile from China. This is carrier killer. It is highly capable of enforcing a complete and devastating blockade of Hormuz. China arming Iran is not ideological, it is calculated hedge. They are protecting their energy supply chain while bleeding US naval resources. Now, here is where it gets crazy. The US is currently pressuring Iran for a deal while simultaneously deploying heavy military logistics to the region. Why the contradiction? Because Washington knows the truth about the Strait of Hormuz. Iran does not need to close the strait completely to cripple Western economies. They just need to make insurance premiums for commercial shipping mathematically impossible to pay, and the thesis suggests they now have the capability to do exactly that. Here is where the narrative shifts from geopolitics to your portfolio. How does this dismantle global liquidity? I need you to pay close attention to the next part, because this affects your money directly. Look at what the Federal Reserve is quietly doing right now. The thesis suggests that the Fed is already panicking. In December 2025, the Fed restarted asset purchases. They're buying $40 billion of treasuries a month. They call it reserve management. Mechanically, it is backdoor quantitative easing. It is desperately designed to keep treasury yields from spiraling out of control. They inject 40 billion a month to stabilize the plumbing. But a Hormuz shock destroys that system immediately. Why? Well, let's connect that to Japan. If you thought the Fed was trapped, wait until you see this. Japan imports almost all of its energy. If the Strait of Hormuz becomes a no-go zone, or if the US strikes Iran and Iran's infrastructure, oil prices skyrocket in yen terms. Just this week, Japanese Prime Minister Takachi voiced severe concerns to the BOJ Governor Ueda over further rate hikes. The Bank of Japan is trapped. To defend the yen from collapsing under imported inflation, the Bank of Japan will be forced to intervene. They do that by selling their massive pile of US Treasuries to buy yen. This is the most important part of this video. If Japan dumps hundreds of billions in treasuries to buy energy, that selling pressure completely overwhelms the Fed's $40 billion monthly purchases. US bond yields spike violently, the base discount rate for valuation models across Wall Street resets higher, and this directly compresses the earnings multiple of every technology and growth stock in the S&P 500. You get a rapid, brutal contraction in global liquidity. This is exactly why I'm closely observing the energy sector. I am specifically watching Tier 1 producers and domestic refiners captured in the ETFs like XLE. I am also monitoring the downside pressure on long-duration treasuries like TOT. A kinetic escalation in Hormuz is historically a massive catalyst for domestic energy, but it is absolutely devastating for long-term bonds due to inflationary panic. As a risk manager, you must always respect the downside risk. If we see diplomatic breakthrough where US pressure forces Iran into a binding deal, the geopolitical premium in oil collapses immediately. That invalidates this thesis. Furthermore, if the Fed responds to a crisis by printing $200 billion a month instead of $40 billion, they're artificially capping yields. In that scenario, the bearish liquidity framework breaks. Equities likely rally hard on a flood of new money, but betting on a flawless Fed rescue while carrier killer missiles are pointed out in the Strait of Hormuz is not a macro strategy, it is gambling. The smart money is tracking the data, so what do you do with this information? Here is your action plan. First, watch the US 10-year yield. It is the ultimate truth teller for this escalation. Track also the Bank of Japan rate decision. If they hold rates, the Treasury dump accelerates. And the last one, monitor Kpler oil data for shifts in the shadow fleet. Stay cold, stay rational, and follow the liquidity. See you in the next one.